The numbers are
entertaining.
And there's no way that NRA is going to go, you are so screwed. They're not publishing that, okay? They're not going to. It's just like, you want to lose your readership?
I'm not much on speeches, but it's so gratifying to leave you wallowing in the mess you've made. You're screwed. Thank you. Bye.
On this episode of ResiWeek, we talk tech increasing your home value and is remodeling on the rise. All this more on this episode of ResiWeek. This is ResiWeek, episode 481, Focus on the Math. Welcome to this episode of ResiWeek. This is your weekly roundup of all the latest news and stories for the residential AV industry. I'm your host, Matty Scott for AVNation.tv, and this week I'm pleased to be joined by two of my longtime friends. First, we have Mr. Jeremy Glowacki. He's the editor-in-chief at Projector Central. How you doing, Jeremy?
Doing great, Matt. Great to see you. I am trying to get rolling on my own podcast, and my guest, who's one of my frequent collaborators, one of the reviewers, had to cancel on me on Friday, and I was just like, kind of poorly, happy about it. Like I shouldn't have been, because I didn't have to do this. But then Monday rolls around, and I'm like, oh, good, I'm going to get into the work here. As I was out of town last week, and I'm like, oh yeah, I've agreed to do this other podcast that I don't even have to do for my job, but I'm doing because I like you guys. And
yes, you do. You totally.
It's good practice.
All right. Well, I'm glad you are here. Then we've got the one and only Mr. Richard Fregosa. You know him as Uncle Richie. He's the principal at Fregosa Design. How you doing, Rich?
I'm good. It's been a minute, so glad to see you. I've been dabbling in other verticals, so it's nice to be home.
It's great to have you both here. All right, we are going to kick this off with an entertaining show today with a story that comes to us from CE Pro. How much value does smart technology add to a home? New research from Vivint, of all people, suggests that smart homes are retaining their high-end value and growing in popularity. Go read through the whole story. It's got a ton of interesting details there, including this one in particular, that according to Vivint, the average cost of a U.S. smart home in 2025 is more than $1.2 million, while the average cost of a non-smart home is just north of $660,000. All right, Jeremy, we're going to start with you on this topic. What I am going to preface this with is a couple of things. One, Vivint took this, obviously, and you can guess where they're pulling their data from because it's Vivint. Two, the quote I just read, where a smart home is valued at 1.2 and a non-smart home is 660, does not have any qualifying information. So we don't know what size or neighborhood those two homes are. I'm assuming and making a general observation that those are not side by side in the same neighborhood with the same floor print. That being said, how much of this data can you kind of look at and say, okay, this is based on, the basic smart home, i.e. decent Wi-Fi, maybe a security system, versus an actual integrated solution? What do you think, Jeremy? What are they pulling this from?
The article sort of hints at super luxury home, but I don't think there's any actual proof in any of that. And when I hear these numbers, I think about these dollar figures. I think about the fact that the CDA channel has always been in the 1%, higher than 1% kind of target. And I don't think that that's all that they want to do, but it's just where they've got their foothold and they maintain that as much as possible. And folks in that category obviously spend a lot of money. So it's a good place to be. Spend a lot, on one project. You don't have to go tracking down every home to, kind of keep the cash flow going. I feel like that's a lot of what this is. It's just the results of talking to folks that are doing projects that are in the luxury market. I don't, anecdotally, which is the best I can do on this, unfortunately, I don't see a lot of folks in my demographic, which is probably more in that lower range that they reference, which is still, to me, a nice upper middle class home, at least in the Midwest, doing smart home stuff. I mean, you've got your home network, and that's pretty much it. People come into my house, they see motorized shades, which I'm fortunate to have because I'm in the industry. I get to write about them. I don't have to pay for them necessarily. And they're amazed at that technology and that it exists. And I feel like that's sort of like a core piece of a smart home for a CEDIA channel client. Multi-room music is still sort of amazing to most of my friends in the, let's say, $600,000 home range. You know, you do hear folks who know Sonos. They know what a sound bar is. They obviously have flat panel TVs. They may have a little outdoor audio sometimes, but a lot of that's probably a wireless speaker. There isn't a lot of integrated technology beyond the home network. So I feel like a lot of these results are cherry picked from the luxury and ultra luxury. And yeah, you've got smart home technology. You're going to promote it in your home sale or your whatever, wherever this is coming from. But I don't think that your average homeowner in the middle of the demographic of, you know, let's say the Midwest is promoting smart home, because it's really not smart home. It's a wireless network. It's your basic infrastructure stuff like your plumbing and your electrical and all that, you know, at this point. So that's where I saw this, and I immediately kind of like looked at it with some, you know, derision, like, this is not real. I don't believe this story.
A little bit of skepticism.
Skepticism is the word. Yes. Thank you.
No problem. All right, Richie, when you see this, the one that kind of hit me was they quoted Philadelphia having the largest price gap, with smart homes costing an average of $1.56 million compared to just $365 for a non-smart home. My read on this is that, like most, you know, cities or developers, for example, they're not offering smart home in your cookie cutter subdivision home that's $365,000, but they are offering a bunch of smart home options in their luxurious $1.5 million, you know, semi-custom or custom home. Is that kind of what we're reading here?
Yeah. And just recently being in Pennsylvania for the first time, there is a very vast difference in that state from the metro area to anything outside the metro area, you know. And in California, you know, we've got the metro area, but, you know, in the north, or, you know, in the Bay Area, you've got the LA area. But you move to the Central Valley, the central part of California, it used to be a huge gap, but because of the population movement, everything's moving towards the middle, where you can find, you know, a high-end development in areas that were farm towns, you know, 20 years ago. But there are parts of the country that haven't followed that path. They've kind of stayed for how they've been for the past 200 years. You know, this is, you know, literally just, you know, 2 hours outside of Philly, it's farmland. You know, I was in the capital, Harrisburg, and it's a city center. And then you exit the city center, you've got the Hershey factory, and that's it. That was it. And you know, and you know, it's a postage stamp compared to Texas and, you know, and California and, you know, Florida or some of these other states. So, you know, I think when I first read it, I really felt that this was a starting point kind of poll, which was we know the data's bad, you know, wink, wink, you know, this is really good data, but, you know, and we were talking a little bit earlier about it. And my question is, well, is bad data better than no data? You know, where is it? At least, is it a starting point? Does it start a conversation? Does it force an integrator to look a little closer at their market and say, you know, let's not look at a national standpoint. Let's look at my neighborhood, you know, and let's take a look at Who are the developers in my area? Is it a big national developer? Are they local developers or regional developers? And I think that especially now for Resi, um, you know, knowing your market, really knowing, and not lying about your market, not like,
Yeah.
oh, we don't touch anything for under six figures anymore. It's the standard trade show talk, right? Everybody's got more business than they can turn down. And you kind of sit there and you go, I'm trying to do the math and your number, the math ain't mathing. And I think that, for integrators right now, especially in Resi, right now, it's, your math's got to math. Everything you got to look at, you've got to focus on your math, because now it's about your profitability. Now it's literally the difference between squeaking a profit through, maximizing your profit, or being upside down and not even knowing it. Because if you've been doing business the way you've been doing the past 2 years, you are in a completely different accounting situation.
Yeah.
And so something like this is good because it should bring up, okay, well, who are my customers? Like, really, who have I really sold to? What are the projects I've really done? And do I fit into that construct? You know, Everybody wants to be high end. Everybody wants to be bespoke. I mean, that's always the crown jewel. Um, but and I always tell the integrators, I'm like, what's your bread and butter bill? What are the jobs that you do that pay your cell phone bill, your insurance bill? All of the little things. Where are those really coming from? The ones that you can just day in and day out count on for your operating costs. And then anything else that comes in, that's always bonus, and you can use that and you can go from it and everything else. But if you're trying to go after a developer for high-end homes for smart home, but you're not really in that market, and you really are providing closer to, like Jeremy said, like people who aren't necessarily going to do motorized blinds because they don't see the point, or somebody who likes the idea of music, but really in their mind, if they've got 3 Alexas sitting around, that's better than it's ever been for them. And again, it's used. Like, this is realistic. This is the math is mathing where people are right now with their buying dollars. Really go, it's a $29 box that sound squirts out of it. Is it perfect? No, but I'm not wearing earbuds, And no, I don't need a 4 or 5 figure distributed audio system that my return on the investment is not a 4x or 5x return on the investment. So, it's good in that Vivint obviously is out there aggressively promoting the smart home concept. And as a national chain and a national brand, if you're smart, you ride on those coattails and you go, okay, if they're doing some marketing for me for free, how can I, from a guerrilla marketing standpoint, maximize that? How can now I approach smart home? Because this is what the definition is, right? For lack of any other definition, if I can't go out and educate every single person every single time, if there's data that people are expecting as kind of the truth of what it is, then okay, great. How am I going to go ahead and make sure that comes from? And you can use those numbers to start, because again, there's a big swing between these. Again, I'm skeptical too of the numbers because I don't think it takes into account. It takes into account home prices. It doesn't take into account buyer preferences, and really
or
that's
market segment,
right.
Which is the other aspect. I'm really glad you brought up the definition part of that conversation, because my wife used to be in real estate, so we know a lot of realtors and we're friends with a lot of realtors. And I ask them essentially this question all the time, because it helps me sell to my customers a little bit better, of, how does tech influence the, attractiveness or the sell of a home? And what they kind of collectively all tell us is that it depends on the buyer. The buyer can look at a house that has a bunch of tech and go, I don't want this. it looks complicated. I don't need it. I'm not going to use it. And they'll actively go towards a house that maybe doesn't have all that additional stuff. And on the flip side, if they're somebody who is either younger or more excited about it, then it's a boom, and they'll potentially pay a little bit more because it means they don't have to bring somebody else in to throw some TVs up. If they can get the TVs that are on the wall included with the purchase, they're happy. And essentially the realtors that, at least that I talk to, say that the tech doesn't affect the price as much as it affects the attractiveness of the home to the potential buyer based on their relationship with tech and definition of what quote unquote smart home means.
I think you nailed it. I mean, that's absolutely what I've perceived as well. And it is just another box to tick in your list of things. It's not going to add dollar figures necessarily to your sales price.
No, we've got an agent friend, and she told me a story of a couple that was about our age. Kind of at this point, mid-30s, 2 small kids. They actively looked at multiple homes that had alarm systems in them, but the fancy ones with the touchscreens. And they didn't buy any one of those homes because they didn't like the touchscreens. They just wanted to punch in a number and walk away. They're like, we don't care. We don't want that. And again, they're younger, you would have thought. But again, buyer preference. All right, let's change topics, but kind of stay on the home front for a second. This comes to us from Residential Tech Today and Rob Stout. Home remodeling could rebound amid tariff turmoil. Again, go read through the article. It's a very interesting take on the current tariff situation, if you will, which we've covered a bunch on the show. But specifically, there's a blog member that is linked there from the National Association of the Remodeling Industry that is kind of trying to do some basic math, saying that only about 7% of materials used in U.S. residential construction is imported and thus subject to tariff. Thus, doing a remodel right now could increase because, again, the tariffs are hitting other things, maybe other luxury items or, I don't want to say extravagant, but extra things opposed to remodeling, which you could do right off the bat. Richie, when you read this, well, I agree kind of with what the article is saying that technically right now remodeling could be more affordable compared to other expenditures. I question how much potential tariffs or whatever increased costs could affect maybe not the basic structure of a remodel, but definitely the finishes. And then I question whether or how excited consumers are going to be to potentially start a remodel in any time with the type of economic uncertainty that we're kind of going through right now. How do you read this compared to that?
Again, the numbers are so here's
entertaining.
First off, there is no way in heck they are going to put out an article to their people that
it was
says,
just a member. It was just a member,
right? There's no way that they are going to, but they're going to receive it from NARI, and there's no way that NRA is going to go, you are so screwed. They're not publishing that, okay? They're not going to. It's just like, you want to lose your readership? At that point, context is everything. And I think right now, more than anything else, I'm really sensitive to how data and information is being presented and being used to being used to sway judgment.
Are you saying that people use data to manipulate thought?
I'm tired of being gaslit. I mean, it is. I am intellectually exhausted of being gaslit on a daily basis by the information that's being presented to me. Like, I'm done. I've become a cynic over anything that I read now, because the first thing that I do when I read it is I have to personally fact check it for myself, because God forbid I'm the idiot that passes on information that's propaganda. Right? So I look at this and go, where is this coming from? Like, what is the motivation first? Second, who are the core people who are going to be reading this and thinking about it? So when I first read it, I'm like, okay, if basically, half of the guys that read this or pick it up, when they're driving to the job site are my carpenters union, I'm telling my carpenters union, you're cool. You're okay, right? Wood's going to be wood. If it's my drywall guys, right? If it's my kind of down and dirty trade guys. If my customer base is not the finished people, and we were talking kind of off air about it, but the people who are providing the white goods, right? If you're a white goods provider, maybe this isn't something that you pick up or you read because it really doesn't apply to you. And so the tone of it might be completely different. So what's happened is the data got moved into a very specific data point, which said, if you provide X, Y, or Z, and then they kind of extrapolated it to embrace the remodeling concept. So is it true? Well, it's true to a degree, right? It's two things can be equally true in that respect. It can be specific for that portion, but in the greater scheme, unless you stop and think about it and you just accept it, well, kind of joke's on you. And that's kind of the way that I view data like this, which is, and I mean, ironically enough, yesterday, one of my good friends is a executive with one of the interior design publications, the International Interior Design. And we were having this conversation in the car. I was coming back from a kid's birthday party, and we happened to be giving him a ride, and we were both talking about it. And there are different segments. There are absolutely different segments that are being hammered. Absolutely hammered. So if you are an association and you've got a core group, a membership, who's looking for any freaking good news, of course, and Jeremy knows, right? I mean, you don't sell bad news to increase circulation necessarily, right? If you provide bad news, you do it for a reason. There's a motivation, And so I viewed this as an editorial decision more than it was a data decision.
I would also just question, what does this have to do with residential tech or CI?
That was my question to you, Jeremy, was if we look at this and if we take the rosy picture of everything's okay, people, even though there's a little bit of uncertainty, the fact that they can do a fairly tariff-free renovation might excite them and entice them to go and do that. Then our industry is heavily tariffed. Again, based on what we know today at this moment, right? So if all of our industry products are going to go up, potentially, like I know I keep getting emails saying mid-May, everything is jumping, in addition to the ones I've already got. But are they going to look at that basement renovation and say, you know what else we're going to do while we do it is we're going to go heavy on that tariff technology. Let's do that. Right? Like
Let's go.
That was kind of my spin was, do you think that do you think the average consumer is going to be so excited that they're saving money on their renovation that they're going to be willing to pay more, if you will, potentially from 6 months ago for tech for that rental?
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's funny. I mentioned to you guys off air that I visited Epson this week at their headquarters in Los Alamitos, California. And they were talking about pricing before tariffs, pricing projectors and having new product lines that were more, they're high-end models, but more affordable. And they were saying they don't want to take money out of the hands of the custom integrator who's selling high end product, they want to allow them to sell higher end audio or whatever that whole story is, which we hear that a lot from manufacturers like or business advisors in the CI channel. Use the money because they're going to spend it on like a top dollar, number for their budget, reallocate it somewhere. I would question the theory that, okay, prices aren't going up. We all know there's tariffs. There's all these price increases. Car prices are probably going up, whatever. By the way, the kitchen renovation, most of it's not going up. You're doing like a renovation on your basement. Most of the materials aren't going up. All the prices are going up on the electronics and all that, oh, well, that's okay because the other didn't go up. I don't think that's going to inspire them to say, well, we're going to still spend on this expensive stuff that's, higher price than it was before. If they're really intent on doing that project, maybe they'll feel better about it, that at least the whole project didn't go up. The entire budget for the home didn't go up. Maybe that's potentially what will happen. I don't see it though. I still think that, okay, this is great news. If you're looking to renovate your home, a lot of the prices aren't going to go up. I felt pretty good about it because I'm looking to do some home renovation at some point. But when it comes to electronics, this isn't telling me anything. It's not helping me out.
Well, the other side to think about too is we didn't talk about finishes, right? A large portion of furniture is imported. Flooring, appliances, countertops, right? Like a lot of this is, again, I've talked a couple of times on the show. We also have a construction company. We are watching, again, the base stuff is fine. Tile, handles, appliances, all of that stuff is climbing and climbing. It's great. It's fantastic. But all right, let's leave it there. Thank you both on that bright note for joining us. Jeremy, if people want to connect with you, learn more about Projector Central, where can they do that?
Yeah, check out projectorcentral.com. And like I said, we're getting the podcast off the ground where we interview our reviewers about their process and various different projector reviews, as the name implies. And look for me on LinkedIn if you'd like and connect. We mentioned InfoComm is on the horizon in June. We're commercial and residential coverage. And we've got an award program if you're a manufacturer going to be at InfoComm. I have reached out to everybody, but hopefully I didn't miss anyone. If I did, reach out to me and make sure you participate. It's a free program.
Excellent. Thank you, sir. All right, Mr. Fregosa, thank you for joining us. If people want to connect with you, learn more about Fregosa Design, where can they do that?
Well, first I wanted to say since it's been a while since I've been on a Resi show. It was not my intention to come in and napalm the pond of the market.
I took the entire everything you said and I just bracketed it with allegedly, which is how I bracket every piece of information I see, read, or get told.
We're fact checking you too.
Honestly, I mean, it's kind of like I kind of simmered on this. The one thing that came to me is that, for integrators and people who are watching or listening, nobody wants to face headwinds in their industry, but you are. And headwinds are opportunities. Headwinds are an opportunity for you to be the company that makes it through. Because we've had other periods, the housing meltdown, the dot-bomb, XYZ, where it was easy to be an integrator. It was. There was a period of time. You'd see the trade shows, right? Jeremy, as well as I do over the past 30 years, right? You'd see everything was great. You could throw a nickel and you could hit an integrator who's saying, we're doing more business than we can handle. And they meant it. And then, something happens. And then all of a sudden those numbers dwindle and they've changed positions in it. And it's easy to get lazy when times are good. From a business standpoint, and the headwinds sometimes are that time to say, okay, let's figure this out, because they will pass, and you will continue on as a company once you weather it, and it's that opportunity for you to just be better. And so when I read these things, and again, and when I kind of drill down into them, It's because I go back and look at my mistakes, and I look at the things that I absolutely did wrong, that I wish I could go back to 22-year-old me my first time around and go, dude, this was not smart, but I didn't know what I didn't know. And so headwinds are that opportunity. And like I've always said, the advice I always give is be brutal with your flaws, be brutal with them. This is the situation. So, when you read these articles, when you see this information, when you watch these shows and you feel down, because it's easy to want to feel down and go, again, this is what I do is who I am. I'm just saying, view this as the opportunity. View it as an opportunity to get better and be better.
The ones that have survived, that are still here today, that have been around for 20, 30 years, have gone through the ringer of these different ups and downs. And it's amazing what they have learned and how they've persevered. And I think they've become better at weathering these, headwinds, basically. I think that's a good piece of advice. And
there's a humility and wisdom that comes with getting your butt kicked. There really is. It just, it sucks, but it does make you better. So with that said, watch these shows, go to Jeremy's site, follow AVNation and our suite of all the verticals that we serve in the area. If you do want to find me, you can find me on some of the socials now, not all of them any longer, but at Fregosa. But if you want to find out about the company, best way to find me, fregosadesign.com. But again, hopefully you'll find me here on Resi with my good friend, or you'll find out some of our other shows. We've got a Stable Control now coming on our 12th year with my partner Steve Green.
12 years?
I know, crazy.
You don't look a day over 35.
But first and foremost, please support our advertisers and our sponsors. That would make me happy on AVNation.tv.
Excellent. Thank you again for joining us. If you'd like to connect with me, you can find me at Matt D. Scott on most of the socials. But more importantly, please visit AVNation.tv, where you'll find this show as well as a wide variety of other shows with all the verticals that we cover. When you visit the website, please take a moment to check out our supporters. We are extremely thankful for their support and ask that you check them out as well. Thanks again for watching. That's all the time we have for this episode of ResiWeek,
the network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.